I feel sadness because most of the stuff you see isn't always true. Media portrayal of Muslims and Arabs isn't 100% accurate. There's always a rotten apple from a tree, so you have to learn to understand that and not categorize everyone as the same.
You have to know them. You have to go inside them, to show them, hey, we are part of you. We love you. And we are, here to support you, and to be with you. Trust me, they will open the door for anybody.
The others, in as far as let's say the United States or the Western world is concerned, is a shifting category. It's a category that is determined by the politics, the history, the social cultural conditions, but more so than anything else, it revolves around who's in power and how power is able to define the interests of a community. So there was a time when the Western European society, as well as North America, perceived the other as the sort of communist bloc, if you will, the former Soviet Union, and sort of an ideological category.
Speak English, comrade. Remember, that is about the only freedom you do not have in this town. This American town.
Americans, they have too many freedoms.
That is another thing you must remember, comrade. For one day it will be your mission to destroy those bourgeois capitalist freedoms.
Frightening, isn't it? From all appearances, this community...
And of course that has shifted since the end of the Cold War to a different category.
They want to go back in time to a pure Islam that wasn't threatened by the West.
It was by chance we discovered oil. We were looking for water.
Those who control the flow of oil hold the Western world hostage.
Osama bin Laden this week again lashed out at the Saudi royal family.
We were tracking bin Laden since the early 90s. We stripped him of his citizenship.
It just so happens that strategically the Arab world is of immense influence and interest to the Western societies, Western nation states, but particularly the United States. So the Arab world has unfortunately found itself serving as the surrogate other.
The union of the 22 countries, known today as the Arab world, became the land of myths in the post-Soviet world.
Right.
The Arab has become the new other, the polar opposite of everything that is rational, logical, and Western appropriate.
They don't want to just attack people and buildings. They want to attack the very idea of human freedom. They want to attack your freedoms as a human being. They're against freedom and democracy completely.
Following political self-interest and integrating words of hate and fear toward Arabs,
the Arabs control $16 billion in this country.
American journalists and filmmakers forget about their compatriots, Arab Americans, the Arabs that love America, the Arabs that are part of the fabric of the Western society.
My name is Michael Abdel Messiah.
My name is Adel Iskander.
My name is Yahya Hassanin.
My name is Nabil Wakar, and I'm an artist.
I'm the director and owner of Human Learning Center, located in Germantown, Maryland.
I'm a lecturer in Arab media at the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies. And I also teach at the Communication, Culture, and Technology program, also at Georgetown University.
We're a preschool learning center. We're open to the public, so we take all faiths and we believe in multiculturalism. So we like to promote lots of different faiths and different cultures throughout the building.
I'm teaching at Montgomery College, Arabic 101 and Arabic 102.
These Arab Americans are not the subjects of American television productions that rely on stereotypes to sell airtime. Real Arab Americans do not match the stereotypical image of inhumane, brutal, angry, and violent Arabs. Someone to loathe.
It's incredibly hurtful. It's a very, very dehumanizing system. And most families have a very, very difficult time resolving that. So it's not a surprise that you've seen a generation of Arab Americans, Arab Canadians, Arab Australians, Arab, French Arabs, who have really struggled with this identity crisis. That their lives are essentially sort of split or bifurcated between two separate identities that are on a collision course.
I have a lot of Arab values, but I'm also still born and raised in America, so I have a lot of American values, and a lot of the American culture is incorporated within the Arab one.
My children are very young. My oldest is 10 years old. And right now we have 5 children in the public school system. So one of the things that I try to teach my children is to be open about who you are, about your faith, about your culture, where you're from, and not to be shy that you're different, that you don't celebrate Christmas or you don't celebrate Hanukkah, but you have different beliefs, and to let people know about those things and to be proud of who you are. So that way there won't be anything, there are no secrets, there are no things to be hidden from other people to make you feel ashamed. And in doing so, it helps them to become more vocal in their school systems. So that way their teachers are made more aware, their friends are more aware, and then they can see that they're no different than anybody else, really.
Are there grounds for forcing Arab Americans to divide their identity between Arab and American? Don't Arab Americans and other Americans share the same hopes in their everyday lives?
Just to live or to eat.
For me, the most important value is to see my children doing very well and take care of themselves and to have a good future. That's about it.
I think going to bed, what am I worried about the most is, am I providing enough for my family, in the sense of, am I making sure my children have a nice, safe environment to be in? Am I teaching them the right values in being polite and being honest and being respectful, and letting them have a good chance at a good education.
Most important thing for me to see my kids growing up in front of me and to be successful for finishing college and being good life and good health.
I have 5 kids and my 6th one is coming on the way. So values, how to raise them better, how to make them a good example. We are, as Muslims, I believe, we're part of this community, society, and we need to participate. We need to build the bridges between us and others to show them who are we.
The 22 Arab countries are defined as Arab based on one singular definition, and that is the fact that they all have Arabic as an official language.
Accordingly, Comoros, Somalia, Djibouti, Yemen, Oman, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Egypt, Sudan, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and Mauritania are known as Arab countries.
Even though there's a political entity that now represents most of these 22 Arab countries, and it's known as the Arab League, most of the agreement on the part of these nation states is developed at the higher tiers. It is a union centered on power that doesn't necessarily communicate the wills of the Arabs.
The struggle against the totalitarianism is the other rallying point for all Arab people. Democracy, financial stability, and civil rights are the components of the new Arab dream and the traditional American dream.
when you look back home in where I'm natively from Egypt, there was a lot of turmoil, there was a lot of kind of dictatorial, even though it's supposed to be a democracy, it was a very single-minded government. So you weren't able to kind of speak out.
It is not that easy for a lot of youth. And this is why the coffee shop in such country like Egypt survive or flourish a lot. For they have nothing else to do, just sit down and drink coffee and talk.
The Egyptian young male and female cannot find job, cannot find place to live, cannot find money to secure their life, they cannot find money or place to get married in Egypt and other part of the Middle East. So the revolution is a very, very big issue for the new generation to show the world that they want freedom, they want to live themselves from poverty.
A high percentage of the U.S. news coverage of the Arab Spring demonstrates the tendency of the American media to dehumanize Arabs. Fox News, for example, presents the Arab rebellion not as an Arab revolution, but as the ascendancy of Islam.
The Egyptian army has now surrounded many of the Christian churches around Cairo to try and prevent Muslim rioters from burning any more of them down. And this is the exact kind of sectarian violence.
Fox News Channel is available to more than 100 million households in the United States.
Many Western countries' interests had been so hinged and so connected to the Arab governments that were being toppled that they looked at these revolutions and saw nothing but instability and unpredictability, and that was a source of immense fear. And that transferred into the media as well.
The series of anti-government demonstrations that have led to huge changes and also challenges, bringing about instability, threatening U.S. interests in the Arab world.
Men are free to marry as many women as they want now in Libya, and that there'll be a lot of restrictions on freedom for women in that country. Where's this all going?
Well, basically, it was very clear that yesterday the head of the Transitional Council, Mr. Abdel Jalil, in one speech told us about the genome of what is going to happen in Libya, and that is going to be an Islamist state, meaning he was...
Is the next government going to be friendly or hostile towards the United States? Are we able to predict the next phases? So that all translated into media coverage. Of course, that's a completely different sentiment from most audiences elsewhere in the world, who were extremely jubilant and very excited because they saw, people power and, unfold in a peaceful fashion. CNN started off with a fairly negative tone and with regards to Egyptian revolution, and then towards the end they were extremely excited, and of course it was a huge celebration and all of that. So they had to be able to explain and justify that people's celebration has to be a good thing.
Egypt's revolution has changed the entire Middle East, a pivotal moment in this country's
The problem with the American media is that most of its coverage of the region is parachute journalism. So a foreign correspondent arrives in Tripoli, Libya, with absolutely no knowledge of Libya whatsoever, maybe like a day or two worth of research through online sources, and then they have to cover a rebellion, and when they're done, they leave. So they're literally parachuted onto site, and then they leave.
Libya is a spokesman for the Egyptian military tells CNN some of the
So what Americans see are little snapshots that don't add up. It's a puzzle that is never complete.
The message people get from both cinematic productions and the television news information fills the gap to complete the harmful and hurtful image of the Arab world.
Whenever depicted in Western media, or in American media specifically, Arabs are angry. We never see them doing ordinary things in their lives. We never see them celebrating. We forget that they have weddings, they have baby showers, they do all the fun things that ordinary people do. But we don't realize that, because the only time that they make news is when they're out shouting and chanting and burning flags.
Pursuing antagonistic myths about the Arab world, American journalists and filmmakers neglect Arab aesthetic traditions, visions of art, joy, and beauty in the heart of the Arab world. Ultimately, many Americans internalize the view that no Arab can be trusted. You might ask, is there something in their religion or their culture that makes them inherently violent and dangerous? Is there a mutation that exists in 22 different Arab countries, rendering all Arab people vicious in the same way?
People from the Arab world that they have different backgrounds, different nationalities, different languages. It's such a diverse community or part of the world.
When a woman comes and cover, it's not a sign of oppression, it's just a sign of you are obeying the Creator.
The Egyptian legal system is run by a combination of Sharia law and modern secular French law. And I have never in my life heard of anyone being stoned to death for anything. Nobody's ever lost an arm, in the Egyptian legal system. So the perceptions that people have are ones that date back to a completely different era in time.
Some people wouldn't really know that there are Christians that live in the Middle East, and like most of us here in the States, we immigrated from that part of the world, but we never converted from any other religion. We were Christians from the beginning, and this is the Christianity is the faith that our fathers and our great-great-grandfathers believed in, and they remained Christians throughout history.
The teaching of Islam is against violence and against terrifying people and killing and all that. And you find this clearly in the Quran. But people sometimes they take few verses from the Quran and they interpret it differently, where it was applied during the time of Prophet Muhammad for certain. It has a reason for it was mentioned in the Quran for a special incident that happened. People take it and try to apply it to our time. And here comes the lack of knowledge and lack of, I want to call it the ignorance behind understanding the teaching of the Quran.
Oh my God, another plane has just hit another building, flew right into the middle of it. Explosion. My God, it's right in the middle of the building.
This one into the East Tower.
Yes, right in the middle of the building. And right now, that was definitely looked like it was on purpose.
From this day on, Arabs and Muslims became easy prey for American media and film productions.
Muslims killed us on 9/11.
Oh my God! That is.
Muslims didn't kill us on 9/11? Is that what you're saying?
Excuse me, the extremists
What
did
religion
that.
were they in?
What religion?
Why is Islam the one religion about which so many in America and the West censor themselves when it comes to talking about or making fun of? Is it just fear?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because they're violent, because they threaten us, and they are threatening. They bring that desert stuff to our world.
Stop the bus! I need to call my embassy.
Good 10 years of consistent, unrelenting coverage of that fashion. Almost to the point where news and film production, cinematic film production, have blurred into each other. Like we no longer can't remember what's right from wrong. There are some films, admittedly, that try to break that mold, but they're few and far between, and they tend not to be as resonant. So take, for instance, a film called Rendition, which shifts the discussion away from what bad Arabs do, but rather like how we have begun to paint all Arabs with a single brushstroke. And it's a story of a young Egyptian American who had never lived in Egypt and knew very little about his home country, and he was He was detained at an airport
Anwar El Ibrahim?
Yes.
Sir, we have an emergency message for you.
and sent through this extraordinary rendition program to a jail in, quite conceivably Syria or Jordan, a generic Arab country where an authoritarian government tortures people.
What if I were to tell you that we have a signed confession from one of Rashid's lieutenants?
I'd say you were lying.
So sponsored by the US government, he was being tortured. And of course it's raising questions about whether or not the US government is implicated in these processes. I mean, we know for a fact that there is an extraordinary rendition program in America.
You have my husband. Please don't walk away from me.
It was an attempt to basically shed some light on a different angle, that there are Arabs who have no interest in undermining this country and want to live in dignity, and they have no reason to take that stance, and that in some cases the system disadvantages them as well, that they too have to go through and are subjected to the burdens of guilt before proven innocent.
Put on the clothes, we're leaving.
After 9/11, I think I was scared to know, are people gonna hate me? Are people gonna think that I'm different? Are people now gonna shun me and my family?
During the 9/11, I was working with the U.S. Airways as a flight attendant, but when the 9/11 happened, I was off. I was not flying that day. I had a few days off. And since that time, for at least weeks after we were laid off, I was actually furloughed.
But the one thing that I found out was that in my business, in my childcare business, families stood by me and families supported me. And we had an outpour of cards and families helping out and keeping watch on our building, and just the support to know who I was as a person and know that that doesn't reflect who I am, that those people who did that act aren't who I am and what my religion tells me.
And I hope that people realize that this is not the teaching of Islam. You hear from the news all sorts of reports, and reporters say different things, but does not resemble Islam by no means. They basically a group of people who decided to do some kind of action. Nobody will agree to some, because I told you I could have been in one of those places when that happened. I could not be here today. So there is innocent people who lost their life, also Muslims, during the 9/11, from all faiths. So basically, an ignorant act by someone does not resemble the entire Muslim, I would say, faiths, all Muslims all over the world.
To be able to identify and appreciate the complexities of these societies can only happen when you're able to bridge the ultimate divide. And the ultimate divide is the linguistic divide. Even though the pace of Westerners learning Arabic is still fairly small, yes, 9/11 precipitated that. There was a large number of people enrolling in Arabic language classes. Almost every major university in the US now has an Arabic language program. The numbers are still fairly small. Now, on the other side, we have a significant shift. Most Arabs in the major metropolises in the region, Cairo, Damascus, Amman, Jordan, Kuwait, Riyadh, Jeddah, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, all these major cities, Arabs are learning English at an extremely fast pace. Most of the new private universities across the region, and there are now tens, if not hundreds of them, are English language instruction based, which means that they're now starting to meet at some point. Western society, Americans and Arabs are starting to meet. They're not meeting halfway, because here in America we're not going far enough to meet them, whether it's a lack of curiosity, or maybe because we don't feel compelled to do so, or because we believe most of what we see on television.
We can never create a one language that will unify all the peoples in the world, but we can have the love and respect and the things that God has instilled in every single person on this planet, is to love and to give and to love peacefully together. This is what's going to bring humanity together and bring the East and the West.
If people would take a closer look into the mythical world created by the Western media, they will unearth a diverse Arab humanity that is far different.
They love to have peace in the land and very stable regimes, and people will be able to work and function in a peaceful manner.
They're very hospitable, but they're also very stubborn. When they have an opinion, they stick to it. They're strict with their kids. They always uphold their values. They're very nice. They like friendships. They are very close ties with family. Family is always number one.
Middle Eastern people love you. Get into the house, eat and drink, and you show them the same. You not show them your different part from them. So as soon as they feel, you are their daughter or your son, they automatically, give you everything. So it's a very important to know the culture, how to treat them.
I like the unity of the people and the love every village has for its people. And when I'm there, believe it or not, even though there's war there, I've never felt safer than I have before in my life as I have when I was at home in Palestine. Because everybody there takes care of each other, and everybody, you know your neighbor just like you know your sister and your brother, not like here. It's different.
Instead of sorting Arab Americans into the category of others, one should listen to what others are saying. Creating a new channel of communication would help to bridge the gap between our worlds, so distinct yet so alike.
I want to bridge the gap that people have of like hating Arabs, hating Muslims, because that's a terrible view, and your vision shouldn't always be clouded by what you see in the media.
To improve the American society and American population's understanding of the Arab world, you first have to get to the communicators, the interlocutors, those who are connecting, the liaisons. And the liaisons are the journalists. Once they have a broader understanding of the region, then by default they're able to transfer that knowledge.
My wife actually has a degree in marketing, where she actually started up her own company recently called Modest Beauty.
I feel like Americans are more inclined to listen to us, the youth, the people who were born here but have Arab families, because we know, like, we can connect with both cultures. Like, I'm not going to be a closed-minded Arab and not listen to the American, or vice versa, because I've lived both lives, so I know what it's like. So I think the fact that you can connect with both sides really helps.
One of the things that my wife and I recognized was that she would always be quoted on how beautiful her scarf was, and that she likes to make sure that she always looks nice and things like that. So when she realized that she was getting a lot of these questions from non-Muslims and saying, oh, you look very beautiful and your scarf looks amazing, she recognized that, this is one thing that, as a cultural thing, can bridge a gap between Muslims and non-Muslims, and saying that the headscarf is not something that is just used to cover up. It can be used as an expression. You can use it as a way to display yourself through modesty. And when doing so, she noticed that other women also wear things like shawls and things like that as fashion accessories as well. So why not bridge the gap between the two cultures through fashion?
The solution is education. The Arab world lacks education, especially they see the West as Christianity invading the East, and which is really not true. It's learning about what the other people think.
Do you know the Middle East, how it looks like? How's the life over there? How's the country run? There is no way you know any country unless you read their history or you read their law.
But the more we learn about the Arab world, the better, as is the case in the region as well. The more Arabs understand and are compelled by what it means to be American and the lifestyle of ordinary Americans, the better things are. Now, admittedly, they're exposed far more than we are. I mean, the average Arab has watched, I don't know, like at least 20 to 30 Hollywood productions in their lifetime, at least, if not, tens more, if not hundreds. But the average American has not seen a single Arabic film. So it's a disadvantage that the United States and the American public has.
The unique strength that America has is its highly diverse population. For instance, more than 8,000 people of Arab descent live in Montgomery County. Every April, county institutes and organizations celebrate Arab American Heritage Month.
Montgomery County recognized April as Arab American Heritage Month since 1999, and the college has continued this tradition. We welcome the opportunity to recognize Arab and Arab American and their contribution to our community. Also to address their issues and concerns, to build cultural bridges and promote understanding between the diverse groups that make up this mosaic that is Montgomery County.
Exposing folks to the issues of Arab culture and civilization and the music and the art and meeting Arab Americans is the best thing you can do. I mean, the fact is that as the school officials who were here said, you've got everybody on the campus. I mean, if you just simply meet each other and spend time knowing each other, the learning that will take place here is not the learning in the classroom, it's the learning of encountering people from all over the world that you go to school with. And so I think programs like this Heritage Month are just the right medicine for what we need today.
The Arab, the new other, that we're shown every day is a false transformation of the essential Arab. Look around you, have a dialogue with these others, expose your senses to a reality far different from a television show. You will find that Arab Americans are another natural point of the American compass.
It was basically just turning on the TV every single day, you know, just like, come on, seriously, you know, we're a bunch of ordinary folk, you know, we go about our lives in a very ordinary, boring, bland, mundane, uninventive way, you know, we're not here to destroy anything. Our families came here for the same reason that everybody else's family did.